And we're live. It's Sam and Michael. I've started an AsyncVoter thing on the day in which the Hangout buttons came back to life. I was writing a blog post this morning about, how the Hangout buttons weren't working, and I went to try and get a screenshot of them not working, and they worked. And I was like, what? And they worked for the Scrum, Modern Fowler, and they now worked for they worked now for this as well. So 3 times today.
Have we checked whether we're getting telemetry? Or?
I haven't double checked. No. Hey, Raphael, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, we're excited because suddenly the Hangout button functionality started working again. We can't take credit for it. Google switched it back on, or they who knows. So yes, I mean, that kind of, it's good, but also slightly disturbing. It's like sort of what Google giveth with one hand, it can also take it away.
Yes.
Yes. So how are things going with you?
Good. We were just working that functionality. Basically, just recoupled what I'd already done.
Yeah.
And obviously, what I've already done is up for discussion, and we're happy to refactor. I think the bulk of the work, though, is done. It's just working out these finer details.
Yeah.
And, making sure everything conforms to the agreed upon API and all of that type of stuff.
Sure. Yes, and I mean, I've got another one. So they've got these 2 PRs in that are all green. Lots of stuff there. I guess I find myself though in a very strange position in that they're kind of, although they're all full of stuff that I think ultimately we will need, they've got like loads more stuff than I thought we needed in the first place. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, okay. Only somewhat. So.
Yeah, and I guess part of that I'm conflicted because you guys are all working really hard on this, and I don't want to be this kind of like, oh no, it shouldn't be that, or it shouldn't be this, or what have you. Anyway, it's and Aresh is hey Aresh, how are you doing?
Hello, how are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Yourself?
Okay. Not bad too. Not bad too.
Oh, good. Oh, great. Excellent. Yeah. So I just for Michael's benefit, just quickly jumping back to the Agile Ventures thing. I guess if we want to check if the telemetry is still working for these Hangouts, we do have this. What is it? Is it the past events? And so we can kind of check if the telemetry. This is this thing here, and we can see, yes, look, we've got Michael and Raphael and Aresh. So I think that shows that the telemetry is working again now.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, woohoo! Anyway, yes. Yeah, so I guess let me find now. Can I find another? Where's the rest of the? Here we go. The Hangout window there. Okay, that's a different project. I just want GitHub. I got too many tabs. It's the usual thing. So I guess, yeah, what I was just saying to Raphael, Aresh, is that, yeah, I mean, we've got these 2 green features now, which have got like loads of stuff that I'm sure we'll all need eventually. I guess maybe it's less controversially, just looking at Joao's PR for a second, and we can all sort of look at that. So I was just sort of reading through it, like that. He's got the feature here, which is like, as a developer, in order to cast my vote and see the state of the projects, I want the ability to check what stories are currently being voted on. And I've said that let's have this simplifying assumption that there would only be 1 current vote at a given time. And so he's got these nice stories here. One that checks for, okay, if all of these previous stories have been estimated, then there are 0 stories. So that's really solid. And then it says like retrieve 1 active vote, and it says if there's if there's a story with size 0, get that. Fair enough. And then he's got this other scenario for retrieving 2 active votes, and I'd almost say, like in the first instance, this is kind of surplus to requirement. Do you know what I mean?
Well, are you talking with me?
I'm talking with everybody. I mean, I think I mean, particularly Raphael, since he's been involved in AsyncVoter for a long time. Also Michael. I mean, part of this is in terms of, we all, want to review the PRs and merge stuff in. And I guess I've got this kind of, this insanity, like, of wanting to, like, create the kind of the leanest possible pull requests, ever. Does that make any sense?
Sure. I think that Raphael gets influence from me because I was I started talking and giving opinions in the pull requests and in the chat. So I think he started to build more things that you expected, of course. Until yesterday, we were talking about how to simplify this. So I think that most of the code that is now in the repo is because I influenced them somehow, and they started to code a lot of things. That is my opinion, and I apologize about.
Oh no, hey, no problem. We're doing open development for a good, to try and get opinions out there. But this code we're looking at here is Joao's code rather than Raphael's code. So I'm kind of giving this as an example of, so that I'm kind of reviewing this pull request and thinking, I mean, that's no big deal. I think more of an issue for me in this one is that I noticed that what Joao has done is he's added this ability to do sorting of the order of the stories, right? So we've got this functionality in here for sorting that's then got all this stuff like different sorting the arrays and so on, and then it's got like the model spec has got like all of these tests for sorting which have no associated kind of cucumber feature. And in my mind, kind of like the way I'm kind of, my hope is to build like, the most minimal, most maintainable thing possible. And so if I get a PR where the feature is like this high level and sorting's not mentioned in it, then it's kind of the kind of, what's the word? The rigorous part of me wants to say, oh, shouldn't we avoid adding all of this sorted stuff until we've actually got a customer story that will drive the creation of it? I don't know. What do people think about that as an approach, particularly Raphael?
I'm not really too sure about these extra features. I think that might be a case of feature creep at this stage. I can see this being definitely something is useful in the future, but like you're saying, we're trying to do BDD/TDD here, and there's no behavior that's been defined yet that defines this functionality. So maybe it is a good idea just to store this code somewhere. We need it.
Right. I mean that's So I'm also keen to pull this in, and so I mean the feedback I might give Joao on this would be, could we take that out of this pull request? I mean here it seems it kind of quite cleanly goes into two pieces, but partly I'm checking here. So if for example I was making that request to Joao, Raphael, you wouldn't think I was being terribly draconian and unpleasant, right?
I hope not.
Oh, good. Well, I mean, I have this. I'm kind of a bit of a high functioning. Oh, go on, Michael. You want to say something?
I said it comports with the high principles of drive-by coding.
Yes, and also it's like. Yes, the principle of driver coding. I mean, I think there's also, is it not a more general principle of, I guess is maybe agile, or it's silent on the, you can be, I mean, in some ways what he's
Yanni. It's
well, you ain't gonna need it. I mean, I guess the issue for this one is that he can argue that from a domain point of view, he's developing the domain functionality by saying, this is functionality we need from the story model, and so domain-driven design. But so if we go to the pull request, obviously, that Rafael, you've been working on for a while, and Aresh, you came and joined in on. And so I guess
But the domain-driven design should, at some level, use language that the customer is familiar with, so it should be translatable into cubes.
Yes, ultimately. I mean, I'm kind of a big fan of working from the cubes as a kind of trying to make sure that it's all connected up to that. I guess, like, looking at this one, because as I mentioned to you, if I now find that, well, it's a bit easier to get onto your branch in here, check out 7, and look at the code generally. And so,
I mean, I'm not the best critic because I've been living under your tyranny for a while.
well, that's right. Obviously, you're institutionalized, Michael, and but it's, you know, if I've managed to convince one person, then the chances of me being completely insane are perhaps slightly smaller. I'm not sure. So I guess, like, I guess one of the things I was looking at, Rafa, was the vote schema, and so we've got these things in here, like for developer and for notes, which I think, like, yes, absolutely, ultimately we will require. But I guess in my mind, the pull request, you know, in the first instance, kind of didn't need to include these things. Does that make any sense?
It makes sense. I actually took those from the feature that was listed. So that's why I included them.
Right.
If they're not, the tests still run, regardless whether we have those or not. We can factor those out for the time being, if you like. They're still going to be stored within.
Sure. Yeah, no, well, I remember that. I mean, it had this, I mean, this story, I think the thing that I particularly wanted to do was to remove that section, because I thought the notes, and I thought we'd talked about that previously, and that you were then, like, we were going, we'll sort of remove the notes. But I guess then the other aspect is, what I noticed here is you've got a vote controller spec here, and I guess my immediate thought is, like, wouldn't we prefer a vote model spec rather than a controller spec?
Sure. You look. I guess this is why I'm doing it, because if you feel like we need to refine something or redo something a better way, go for it. It's just that I wasn't really given much of a model. I was just kind of working from the feature, and I derived the model from that. And then I kind of coded the, I don't know, are you saying I'm putting too much code within the controller per se, and I should be making the model heavier, or?
Well, I mean, looking at the vote controller here, this looks great. I love it. Right.
On the screen, we're seeing the model still, aren't we? Yes.
Is it not? I've got it on votecontroller.js.
There we go. Now I'm seeing the vote controller. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, now this I love. I mean, this is like, basically we've got a really slim controller here that's just going from, you know, incoming data here, and it's passing it off to create the votes, and that's it. I mean, this in terms of this, right? Like, this is exactly what we want from controllers, right? That we want thin controllers that just they're handing off stuff from the web thing to the model. So yes. This is wonderful. And I guess it's and I think almost the rule of thumb that we're using in a lot of the other projects are that, you know, because we avoid doing the controller test, because actually, you know, if the controller is doing is linking things like this, then the key thing to test is the model rather than the controller. I mean, that's sort of a trivial. I mean, that's almost not worth emphasizing, because I guess we can, in principle, like this, with relatively little change, could be changed from a controller to a model version, and it's kind of neither here nor there.
Sure.
I mean, I guess what I'm thinking of is that so, like, these individual tests, they now they're exercising functionalities that related to notes, you know, and the developer, and so on and so forth. And
sure.
I guess, yeah, I mean, where I'm conflicted is, it's kind of like, yeah, we definitely going to need all of this functionality. And I'm like, oh, you know, Rafael and Aresh, you've worked really hard to put that all in there. So I'm kind of like, you know, I feel like, oh, I should just merge this all in and just move forward. I guess it's the thing that gives me pause for thought is if I can show you, like I'm maintaining this website one project where there wasn't much. I feel like for the pull requests that were coming into that as it went on, there wasn't much pressure to absolutely minimize the amount of code coming through. And I find the process of maintaining this project that was previously like, you know, lots and lots of stuff, it's really hard. Like, you know, I burn hours like every week trying to manage the complexity of the code base for this other thing. So yeah, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to do, the key thing I'm trying to do is kind of communicate the sense of conflict going inside me.
But
does it make any sense?
I understand the sense of conflict. What I'm curious about or questioning is, how does this differ from the agreed upon specs? Because there's not been a lot of specs. There's been that feature there.
Right.
The way I interpreted that feature was to include the notes. You're saying, let's not worry about the notes now. I can look, it'll take very quickly. I can factor out those notes and I can factor out notes tests. That's not, I'm not concerned if I get that feedback. If you don't want to environment, fine, we'll do that. That's easy. Just on the notion of testing, the way I understood it is we're starting with this behavior level test. So we write our cucumber first.
Yes.
And because I wrote a kind of a public interface being the controller function, I also wrote tests for that controller function.
Right.
So that if you take a look at those tests, maybe that will make things clearer for you about what and why I've done those things.
You mean take a look at the controller tests?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I mean, the controller tests look good. I mean, in as much as I can see how all of this relates to the kind of high-level story of what we're doing, like the ability to track which developer has voted for which thing, you know, what notes they might have said about it. I mean, I guess the notes thing is that it was kind of like before the weekend, I was kind of mentioning in this comment about the notes and so on. So I sort of thought I'd given that feedback earlier, and I thought that you'd said before the weekend, oh, right, that can easily be taken out. And so, so after the weekend, I've come back to it, and the notes are still there, and there's now this additional developer thing, and it's kind of like I'm kind of like, oh, I mean, but actually, I wouldn't want you to take the feedback now that I'm saying take all this stuff out, because I think having done it, I think the pressure's on me to, you know, more. Well, you've done all this work, so I should kind of get over myself and pull it in. I guess. You know, particularly with your one, it seems like, I think, unlike Joao, where he's added all of this kind of sorting functionality that's, as I say, like, I think more obviously feature created. I mean, you've got which is your one? Yours is cast vote.
Yes.
And so you were working, I mean, and the thing about the notes is, yeah, if I'd been more on the ball, I would have got in there and, you know, done some cutting and hacking and removed this element beforehand. Given it was in there, I think you're totally justified in including the notes, because you're working from that. So you've got I want to cast my vote on the story and provide some notes. I guess if I was being like really, really lean, I would say it's, you know, it's not the case that based on this story, it requires identifying the developer. But like I was saying, it's like the high level story that we've got about how an async vote operates. Clearly we need that in there. I guess in my mind, I just had this picture of, you know, making the absolute minimum thing that would basically allow three of us to post and generate votes and do things, but without including these elements, which I kind of see as, you know, yes, absolutely necessary in the long run, but complicating our immediate, you know, efforts. At the same time, you know, I end up like in this situation where I'm going like, oh, I'm making a big fuss about it, and everybody's going to hate me. And so
I wouldn't be afraid to give negative feedback. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's all done in the spirit of getting the project done and getting it done the right way. So,
sure. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I put it in there because that's just what I saw needed to happen.
Yes.
And that was just my interpretation of what I was.
Yeah. No, and it looks, and this, I mean, re-emphasize this. I love this. right? Like we've got a lovely clean thing there. Like the actual app code that we've got going on, I mean, you know, there's, like I said, there's a few extra elements in there. So, you know, to be honest, particularly if the tests are all passing and we can hit the, like presumably I can also run this now and I can hit the endpoint, right? Like, and do, so if I do npm start here, I'm thinking on the right thing, on the npm install.
We're only seeing your Sublime window at the moment. Just
that was when I was doing the thing earlier on today. It was it's funny, like it was really slow. I mean, I'll turn it on off again. I was doing screen share with Matt at the end of the. You see my video now?
yes.
Of me, and then I come back to here.
Alex has joined us, by the way.
Yeah, hey Alex, how you doing? Now, for some reason, I can't start the server locally. There's something else. You guys, I mean, the tests are all pausing. Can you guys run your servers on this branch?
Running it.
Just looks like for some reason. What?
Mine's running. So
Yeah. No, mine's running now as well. I don't know. That was weird. Like, so there we go. So we've got the endpoint. I guess we probably don't yet have a vote. But so I could presumably do a postman operation here now to. I'm just going to mute Alex there because it was sort of crackly. Localhosts there 4577, and so we would need a story in the first instance, wouldn't we? So I can first post a story. So if I have there, we've got the body that's all ready to be a story of size 0. So that would create a story for me, which we could go and see. Come back here. Yeah, so we now have a story there. So if we want to vote on this story, we need to take this ID.
correct. I mean, personally, I don't mind if it's that ID or if it's another identifier.
Or the name or what have you, our friendly ones. But so now in principle, if we do this and we say size equals 1 and we send that, then we can vote on that story. But it says error developer missing.
At the moment, we need. I've also called that size vote, which I can change.
Okay. All right.
But just call it. If you call that vote equals 1, that should work.
Yeah. Okay. So that's now worked here. Cool. Okay.
And optional notes. So
sure. Right. So developer required and notes optional.
yeah.
Yes. And I guess what we don't have at the moment is any mechanism. There's no endpoint for reviewing the state of the vote. We can do this post. We assume that it's been stored, but we haven't yet done this. It'll be a separate story that we work on subsequently to.
Correct. And we're not checking around. If a developer casts the same vote twice, it'll get the same vote twice in the database. So there's none of the other kind of implicit features. Yeah. Yes.
So I mean, that all works. I mean, I guess this is the I think the fact there that I couldn't do this with the developer is, and this is not. I'm not asking you to make a change. I'm just interested to look at this. Like if this is in terms of the cast vote, it's we've got that. That's an implicit requirement there that you should specify the developer name. And it's not something we've actually introduced through the feature.
Got you. I just saw, as I said, I just saw it as, well, how do we know who's writing what? And that was just in my, that's just what I read into it, I guess.
Right, absolutely. And I guess and I think you're right, because we will absolutely need it. I guess what I'm really keen to do for all of those aspects is kind of then pop up, a specific feature for that, which is, as a developer, so that I guess partly what this is I did this pairing with Adrian over the weekend on the partly on the web UI. But so the big point that I was making to him about is like trying to sort of religiously stay within, you know, the absolute, even like being kind of like obtuse in terms of doing the minimum of what the feature demands. And then if one thinks of oh, right. Like, so for example, here, we've got this story here. Can you see that?
I'm still seeing your postman.
Oh, it's really slow. Is everybody else like seeing? I'm gonna go back to the video and share it again.
Interesting. Hello, Sam?
Hello. Yeah, I just restarted and stopped. Can people see? I'm just trying to highlight.
Yeah, I see a story.
So, I mean, I'll put this link to this thing in here. So, I guess what I'm particularly going for, what I was trying to articulate to Adrian over the weekend, is that whenever you think of an implicit, oh, I think we probably need that, is I guess I would encourage, rather than sort of adding it, is like being obtuse and almost writing the minimum code that's needed. But then if you can think of the implicit requirements, then write a new story and we'll get everybody to kind of, we'll put it in the hopper, as it were, and get everybody to vote on it, if that makes any sense.
Makes sense.
And it kind of relates back to this, you know, the test-driven approach where, you know, even on the method, on the process of like, you know, you don't want to write any code that isn't covered by tests to the same extent that you don't want to write any of the system that isn't covered by features. So it feels like it would be a shame now, having got it all in there, to remove it. Although I guess actually it's not such a...
It's not a big deal.
No, I mean, the developers in there, we've got the required, I mean, the actual app code is extremely lean, right? We've got you know, there's like under 25 lines for under 20 really for all of that.
There's far more tests code.
Right. You know, it's absolutely, yeah, it's absolutely more of the test. And I guess, but see, what I'm seeing here though, for the controller, is that really this is a test of the model rather than the controller, because the controller is not doing anything other than just like, you know, being the test of the. It's just not doing anything other than hitting the model, right?
Yeah, it just passes information. Yeah, which is what I think Martin Fowler recommends.
Absolutely, I think, you know, having them be really lean is definitely the way to go. And so almost this could be, you know, just made into the vote model spec. I mean, I think what we were hoping to move towards ultimately is, you know, because you made the original point that the root specs are effectively replicas of the Cucumber things, which they are. I think the Cucumber ones are going to be more readable and maintainable in the long run. Yeah, ideally what we'd end up in the test directory is just tests of the models and that, or services as they come along. And so tests for the controllers and the roots end up being redundant, but...
Yeah, I haven't tested the routes explicitly.
Yeah.
If you look at the cast_vote.feature,
yeah,
that kind of, I started there and then I went down.
And then so presumably we've got step definitions for the cast vote here, and these are somewhere in this, it will be hitting the endpoint. Is the endpoint specified in here somewhere, or is that?
Where's here? So your screen's frozen.
Is it? God, that's really, huh? I mean, this almost becomes unusable if it's not. I mean, the screen is coming back for me instantaneously. I mean, I guess as we said at the beginning, what Google takes away with one hand, gives with one hand, they can take away with the other. We've got the functionality. Like Michael, I mean, you and I were pairing yesterday, and your screen was updating instantaneously.
I was pairing earlier with, when I was pairing earlier, I don't think there was a problem. I was looking at it on YouTube afterwards. It was fine. So I'm not sure what's going. Maybe it's my connection. I don't know if...
Yeah, although Matt, I think Matt was having the same problem with me. I mean, I've just gone in here. I've gone in the cast vote steps.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was just wondering, so it's like I've got given a cast a vote on, and then it's setting up, like, in terms of the steps, knowing which endpoint to hit. Is that ends up being specified in the world model, does it?
Yes.
Right.
So I wrote that
Here we go.
setup story in the world.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the right way to do it. As this
That looks fine to me. That looks fine to me. Yeah, I was just checking. Yeah, and yeah. Now, of course, I'm constantly unsure whether you're seeing the same screen as me. But I'm just going back to the cast vote feature file.
I'm not. I'm still looking at the steps.
Yeah. Okay.
That's okay. I know what I've written.
Yeah. So yeah, and so then it's. I mean, I guess the key objective is to sort of communicate this bigger idea of kind of rigor in our approach, where anytime we're kind of like, oh yeah, that seems like a nice thing to have, that we kind of like cycle that back into a a feature. And I think there's so much that can always be done later, whereas the more code that we bring in early, then the more difficult it is to make changes if we need to change direction. So yeah, I guess then I don't know what like one piece of feedback is it could be that we change the. I'll just put my video on because I think it's probably not worth doing the screen share. I need to like reboot my Chrome. Is we could move the controller spec to a model spec, but again, that's something. It could just become a refactoring deal. We could merge this in, and then we could create like 2 or 3 tickets just to do any refactorings that we thought were appropriate.
Yeah. So one of the things that Aresh and I talked about was there still does need to be some refactoring before we have that push down, that pull requests.
Oh, really? Well, yeah. What refactoring were you thinking was needed?
So number one is the routes themselves. So when I created, if not this round of programming, but this time I abstracted out the routes. Should I share my screen?
You could do. Yeah, I've just gone to the routes page for the vote.
Sure. I'll just bring up. Here we go.
I lost your screen, Sam. You've gone black.
Really?
No.
Well, Raphael's sharing a screen, and maybe that's the way to go. We'll see if Raphael, if it's specific to my computer. I mean, I might.
So just to recap, I pushed all of the routes out to a separate routing table, and so then I had like a top level routes defined. So everything that starts with the stories gets pushed to the story router. Now, previously, I had votes as a top level story, as a top level domain. We now made that a subdomain because of the way
wanting to have the relationship to the story. Yeah,
exactly. So problem is here. This is why I've got these to-dos. I've said router.routes story ID votes, and I've got this post function here. I think ideally what I would like to do is something more like, app.use, story ID vote, and then move all of this at least this postcode, into the vote.routes.js. However, I'm wondering, just to keep everything nice and clearly defined lines of delineation, that if a change to a vote is not going to impact change to the story and vice versa, beyond specifying those routes.
Right.
I'm wondering though if I'm hitting a limitation of the framework in doing that, or is it going to be too much effort for no reward to do that?
And that sounds to me like that's worth being a refactoring ticket. Like to explore. Like it would be. Sort of following the maxim of like, let's try and avoid pull requests being open for too long, because long pull requests end up blocking other people starting on things. So and increase the chances of conflict. So yeah, I mean, I would say that would go into refactoring. I mean, I guess what I'm seeing here is also part of this is right. So you've actually got I mean, at the moment, like in the vote.roots.js, we've got the ability to post to the vote thing without a story, which is sort of it's a replication of the code. We've got the same code.
That code has never been called now.
Right, and that's so. Ideally, we would sort of remove that before moving forward, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's why maybe that file needs to disappear. Maybe it needs to be refactored. I don't know. That's why I put in like the to-dos.
Yeah, sure.
And I thought I'd bring it up and discuss it with you guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've ended up saying a lot of things. I guess Alex and Aresh, any other thoughts on what we've been discussing so far? We'll come on to Michael in a minute, maybe. What, 3 viewers now? Woo! Let's go for Alex. Alex, are you following what we're talking about? Does it make any sense? Are we busy bike shedding ourselves to death? Alex is having trouble unmuting himself.
I don't think he's got his head. Oh, here he is.
Hey, Alex, are you all right? For some reason, we're not getting any audio from you, Alex. Let's just go to Aresh. Alex, while you maybe get your headset or what have you, we can't hear your audio. Aresh, any thoughts on what we're saying? Is it making sense? Are we going in the wrong direction? What do you think?
Well, I think it's your approach. I respect this approach. Yes, eventually we're ending up with solutions. Let's cut out the code, get rid of everything that is not required at this point, like the nodes and the developer. Finish this story and then thinking about the rest of the requirements. Have another meeting, because I think this meeting was very nice or helpful. Just especially because after the storm or the dust that I put in the project, so I think it's necessary. It was necessary to clarify those things.
Good stuff.
I agree.
That sounds good. Yeah, I mean, I kind of aspire to this, like, pull requests that are like, the minimal. It's like a Zen minimalism of them, which not everybody has to aspire to. And I think ultimately, I want every project in Agile Ventures for people to go in the direction they want to. As I was saying to you, Aresh, yesterday, it's partly because this is sort of a key infrastructure project for Agile Ventures that I know I'm going to be maintaining for a long time to come. I'm really keen to go for a lean code base. Michael, any thoughts?
No. I'm used to your tyranny, so.
Okay. Well, yes. Excellent. The Tyranny. By the way, everyone check out the Tyrannids. They're an awesome race. I used to think the Borg were hardcore, but not until I heard the Tyrannids. I guess Alex, we would love to have his input, but he's not there. And he's talking to us, and maybe he's busy doing something else. We're not sure. Okay. Well, we've got 9 viewers, 7 viewers. We've never had 9 viewers before. Wow. We're really... Joel's point about monetizing the YouTube channel really starts to make a little more sense there. But 8 viewers, goodness me. So, yeah, I guess that's that. Anything else we should work out, Raphael? Any other thoughts, Raphael?
Yeah, before we move on, Aresh actually brought up an interesting point. I just say an error should be returned if you look at the BDD. He was saying maybe we should be specifying what error we should be receiving. I've just gone with what I've interpreted to be there, which is, again, probably more than what was actually written. But, I've already built those in. Like, you can see that if there's missing ones, I've already said error.status equals 412, but I've not tested those. I've not specified it should be a 412 error. I've just said if it's an error.
I mean, I almost, like in the spirit of like total uber leanness, I would almost like I almost imagine in my mind, not even worrying about any of the errors and just, being able to post a size equals something, and I mean, and then like, I guess there's like, you know, one sad part with the scenarios for that says like scenario I post, you know, equal to what have you, and then there's like coping with the situation where you haven't included the size or the votes. I mean, I on that, you know, the vote model containing a thing called vote, it would seem to me to make maybe more consistent for the domain model for it to be to vote to have size. If we're having story having size, then a vote has a size.
Yes.
And
we can very quickly refactor.
Yeah, that can be very quickly changed. But yeah, and I guess it all links back to the thing is, when we make the more simple that we make it, the less, you know, number of scenarios and the less stuff there is to review. So anyway, I mean, I'll leave it with you now, and I think you've got
those scenarios, like those extra scenarios. I always think, well, what if we do something wrong? Because in my head, if this is a service, what if somebody does intentionally call it with wrong parameters, trying to break the system or whatever?
Right.
Maybe that's a new thing. So I don't know what your views are.
Well, and the thing that I think there is, I think you're absolutely right. But I guess what I lean towards is rather than anticipating up front all of the ways that it could be broken, is I'm going again for this idea of the tracer bullet, so that, you know, I want to get it deployed onto the system and just do the absolute minimum thing. And I'd almost want to introduce the error things as almost their own features. So it's like, you know, as a system admin, so that the service, you know, and sort of, I'm tempted to like bring those along afterwards rather than pulling them in up front. It's just a kind of personal preference there. I mean, I think Michael gets, you know, I mean, irritated the way that I do that in website one. But it's all in the service of making the PR something that can kind of like just be snapped in so easily, and then just keep the flow of PRs going. Do you know what I mean?
That's true. So in the future, for myself, so in the future when I do have these, oh, what about this? Rather than putting them into the scenario, throw them as an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, it's sort of, I think that's for particularly for a distributed team full of volunteers, there's loads of people looking for like little somethings to work on. So by taking all of those little, you know, well-conceived things, and then we can do more votes on them, and then other people can work on them, and it sort of keeps the whole, you know, woohoo,
cycle and flow going.
Yeah, that's the principle. I mean, you know, in a year's time, I'll be blogging about how no, it was planned 6 months in advance, and everybody must have a, and who knows, I'll be in a different. But Joao is just flagging us from the AsyncVoter channel and saying no problem, and I think maybe actually Joao was one of the people who was watching the video and maybe responding to that. So anyway, yeah, let's stop this here. I'm going to go make a cup of tea. There's a Scrum in a few minutes. Michael, maybe we can do some website one after the Scrum if you're free. Otherwise, should we leave it there?
All right.
Leave it there. Do you want me to refactor those names now though? I've got limited time. I think I've got an appointment. I need to be somewhere by 6 p.m.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing is that it could be, you know, I could be going in there and doing it myself if you're, you know, or other people could take that on. You know, we've all got access to the code base. So, I mean, I'd say ultimately it comes back to, like I said last week, it comes back to, you know, I've given my opinion. Now you do what you feel most motivated to do.
Just let me. I'm going to remove the vote.routes.file and then repush just so that extra little bit clear.
Yeah, great.
And then we'll go from there. But that'll happen in 5 minutes. So.
All right, lovely. Yes, and we'll do. And I'll take another review tomorrow, and I'll maybe you know, push some other bits to show things. And I mean, yeah, what I really want is to like then free both you and Joao up to kind of like take on new stories and work on sort of, I think getting closure on individual PRs and getting them into the master, that's really the goal. We want to get it in there ASAP and then move and start building on top of that.
Sure, I'll push in that change. You can do any nomenclature changes as you see fit.
Nice one.
All right.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ravel. Thanks, Aresh. Lovely to meet you for the first instance. Alex, great that you could sort of join us. Michael,
Cool.
Michael, maybe see you in the Scrum. All right, bye for now.
Bye.